Hey everyone, it's Movie Lover Warren 20 here, and I'm here with actually a brand new franchise ranking. Yes, guys, my actually next franchise ranking is actually going to be for all five of the Rambo movies. So, I was given the opportunity to watch all five of the Rambo films, and well, rewatch anyways, and it's still basically still this epic franchise, and an action, in my opinion, anyways, an epic action franchise, and I can't wait to really do this because before it was a franchise, it was a novel written in 1972 by David Morrell. So, with that being said, I'm going to start off with the first film that started it all, and what is obviously my favorite Rambo movie. That is First Blood. Now, First Blood has a very special place for me, sort of because it was filmed in my area where I'm from. It was the movie that launched my area as a famous country. It was basically the first movie to be filmed where I'm from. Yeah. So what is this movie about? Well, John Rambo, a former Green Beret and Vietnam veteran, wanders into the small town of Hope, Washington for something to eat. But he's arrested by corrupt cop Sheriff Will Teasel for vagrancy. Upon suffering so much abuse from the deputies, Rambo goes crazy and begins a personal war with Teasel. Yeah. Basically one of the most notorious action movies of the 80s. This movie rocks so much because the beginning of the film has that beautiful acoustic guitar solo, some great acting, especially from Sylvester Stallone, who is and always will be Rambo. And Rambo's depicted as a bit crazy but still sympathetic, having returned home from the Vietnam War, learning that one of his close comrades has died due to Agent Orange, and then being unwanted and tortured in a local town that he travels to for completely made up charges, because the cops there are corrupt. Some excellent cinematography, and surprisingly, this is the only Rambo movie that has no bloodshed. In fact, kind of only one person dies in the whole film, and this one focuses more on the character than the violence. By contrast, Rambo did actually kill a lot of cops, civilians, and National Guardsmen in the original novel, anyways. A great soundtrack, some great action, incredible practical effects, and Rambo has lots of memorable quotes. And the ending scene where Rambo talks about when a buddy of his got his legs blown off while Saigon and he breaks down, which is how the movie ends. They originally filmed an ending that was going to be closer to the novel, where Rambo would have forced Trotman to kill him. However, due to his more sympathetic portrayal in the film, the new ending was filmed with had Rambo getting arrested instead, which launched the reason for the sequels to be made. But yeah, how would I rank this movie? I'd rate it a flat out 10 out of 10. It's easily the best Rambo movie in the series, and even though I think all of them are good, but okay, 3 of the sequels are good anyways. But all in all, it's the best film in the series and still one of my favorite action movies of the 80s to date. But since the ending, we had to get a second half of it, or follow-up to the movie, and that, of course, would definitely have to be one of the most rock'em sock'em movies of the 80s, and was actually the most recognizable and memorable installment in the series since it encountered rip-offs, parodies, video games, and imitations, and the only Rambo film to actually make over $300 million worldwide at the box office. And that, of course, is Rambo First Blood Part 2. Now, was this movie as good as the first one? No, not really, but it was still a very fun action movie nonetheless, and an action movie you can't really take seriously, and yeah. So what? Anyway, what if it was released in 1985 and is set 3 years after the events in Hope, Washington, where former U.S. Army Green Beret John Rambo is visited at a prison labor camp by his old commander, Trotman, Colonel Trotman. With the Vietnam War over, the public has become increasingly concerned over news that a small group of U.S. POWs have been left in enemy custody in Vietnam. John Rambo was offered the chance to cut short his prison tenure by going on a secret mission for the U.S. government deep into the jungles of Vietnam and locate American POWs. Here's why this movie absolutely also rocks despite not being as good as the first. Like, once again, it still retains the charm and charisma from the first film. Once again, Sylvester Stallone still gives a great performance as John Rambo. A fantastic soundtrack that was performed by Jerry Goldsmith. Rambo's still a likable character, still having his character development from the first film, and still has memorable quotes like the first film. As mentioned below, and the story, while cliche and predictable, is actually so much more exciting and more fun than the first film, which succeeds from this criminal chase film into a fun-packed war film, which fits the Rambo series very well. The cinematography is still in the top notch, and tons of awesome action-packed battling scenes, such as the boating battle scene, and even the final battle scene and chase scene with the two helicopters is amazing, and it's fun to watch. And this is where the film series actually started to get gory, because the idea of a Rambo film turning into a fun, violent, gory film is pretty impressive, which builds up a lot of excitement from the fans. And the practical effects with the very few times we actually see blood is still impressive in the first. Now for the bad qualities, well, sure, the story is still a little slow, cliche, and predictable. It got heavily criticized for its gory, violent tone, but guys, the original novel First Blood was actually much gorier than the actual movie adaptation of First Blood, and plus, like, it irritates me how they always complain about Rambo having gore. Like, come on. Rambo is not a franchise for kids. It never was written for kids. Period. So the gore complainers should know what they're getting into, but I'm going to get more about the gore complainers on the very last film in the series. Tay and Podofsky aren't very good villains in the franchise. Yeah. So guys, how would I rank this movie? I would rank it an 8 out of 10. It's not quite as much of a masterpiece as the first one, but it's still a very good sequel, still a continuation of First Blood nonetheless. It's a perfect way to go for a sequel, and yeah, I would consider it the third best of the series. It's an 8 out of 10 for me. But then, 3 years after First Blood Part 2, in 1988, we went and we got the worst Rambo movie in the series, and that is Rambo 3. So, first, he was in Hope, fighting the law. Then he was in Thailand, again. And now, Rambo goes to Afghanistan. Like, this movie, despite being a Rambo film, it was such a dumb piece of friggin' rubbish. Like, this was pretty much the time when the Rambo series was really running out of steam, and the series came to an abrupt stop for 20 whole years. But I'm going to start with the movies about first. Well, after the events of First Blood Part 2, John Rambo was living and working in Thailand, helping them build their temple and raise money by fighting in stick fights. His old colonel friend, Colonel Trotman, tries to recruit Rambo to work with him once more. This time he was going to Afghanistan, where the Soviet Union had invaded. Colonel Trotman obviously wants the best man he can. However, Rambo refuses, saying his war was over in Vietnam. Rambo quickly changes his mind when he finds out that Colonel Trotman was captured by the Soviet forces and being tortured. Rambo sets off from Pakistan to Afghanistan, meeting up with the Mujahideen and becoming part of their community. He finds out the Soviet command was brutal, setting up landmines and attacking villages at will with helicopters. He sets out orders to kill men, rape women, take away women, and kill babies, and aims to prevent the new generation of Afghans. With the help of the Mujahideen, Rambo sets out to go into the Soviet fortress, rescue Trotman and the Afghan hostiles, and hunt down the Soviet leadership. So, yeah, that's literally the plot of the film. This movie is literally just a live-action cartoon where, with the level of violence and the way some people die, especially with Rambo using explosive arrows, and where he drives a tank with a helicopter, a large number of deaths that Rambo ends up being responsible for in this film. Like, there's still some fun action scenes, like the night raid and the stick fighting, but rest of it was way too over the top and it lacked any style. Ah, God. And it was directed by Peter McDonough as his first feature film, and he was originally a camera operator in his second unit with certain films, and kind of wish he just sticked with that. I don't put much blame on him, but just stick to what he should have just stuck to what he was good at doing. Now is camera operating. The major problem of the film was the very horrible writing, the weak plot. It had nothing new to say. It was just basically that genre. It's literally kind of the same thing as just First Blood Part 2. But yeah, that's literally it. So yeah, I have nothing else to say about Rambo 3. I'd give it a 4 out of 10. It's the worst of the series in my opinion. Yes, Last Blood haters. It's the worst one. Okay? But I'm gonna get to Last Blood after the next one I'm talking about. Because 20 years later, we got my second favorite Rambo movie. And that is, of course, Rambo 2008. So when this movie came out, it was like 20 years since the last installment in the series, Rambo 3, and this was especially the right way for the series to come back after the mess that was Rambo 3. Yeah, and it was not made by TriStar Pictures and now made by Lionsgate, with half help from the Weinstein Company. And enough about that stuff, guys. Let's just talk about the movies. Well, this one, once again back in Thailand, John Rambo is still living there, and he joins a group of mercenaries to venture into war-torn Burma and rescue a group of Christian aid workers who were kidnapped by the ruthless local infantry unit led by Major Tank. So, when this movie came out, it set the record for being the most violent movie, to have the most acts of violence. Like, no, really, like, this movie is ridiculously graphic with its gore. Although, I wouldn't say as graphic as the one that came after this one, but this one's definitely very graphic in gore. And that's what I did like about it. Because originally it was the final installment of the series, or was meant to be the final installment of the series, but until then, why is the movie so good? Because before last we got Last Blood, it was a perfect conclusion to the Rambo franchise, with Rambo gets his one last war with a group of rebels in the Burma War. Sylvester Stallone still gets an awesome performance as John Rambo, and still the most likable character of all 4 Rambo films. The plot is straightforward as always, much like the first 3 films, some awesome cinematography. Tint is a great villain, and probably the second best villain in the series. And it still retains a huge roller coaster ride of gore, violence, and action sequences. Like, Death Metal Ellis has said it best. If you're not a main character in this movie, you're dead. Like, no main character is safe in this film. The tonal shifts are very well handled. Like, it starts off with this normal pacing adventure genre, saving people to him before it comes an action thriller to a huge action war film in the third to the final act. In the scene where Rambo sets that bomb in the jungle, killing all the enemy soldiers, creating a huge small nuke around the jungle is extremely awesome. Still some great pacing. So Brian Tyler gives a very well composed soundtrack, and the very epic final battle, probably the best final battle in the Rambo franchise, with Tint and his minions being during the final epic climax. And and it does have a great ending scene. I love how it ends. They actually ended it this time with Rambo finally returning home to the United States to for his return home in Bowie, Arizona. Now the bad qualities. The camera gets too shaky at times, and some of the newer characters don't even serve charm or charisma from the first three films. And although the plot's straightforward for the most part, it can be rather thin at times. And once again, the critics, criticize it for being too violent. But I'm not gonna. That criticism is gonna be saved for the next installment. Because, well, now that. Sorry, guys, I keep struggling, but. Well, yeah. Even though I love Last Blood, I do kind of agree Rambo 2008 was a good way to end the series, and still kind of somewhat is the true end to Rambo for me, because he finally returned home and it was perfect that way. But however, 11 years later, in 2019, of course, we got to see what was becoming of Rambo after his return home to Bowie, Arizona, and yes, guys, what I still consider a very good action film. Yes, guys, I like this movie a lot. A lot. Please don't hate on me for it. And that, of course, is Rambo: Last Blood. Okay, sure. It's not the best Rambo movie in the series, but despite being the second weakest, I still consider it a fun movie. Like, I saw this movie in the theaters opening weekend, and it was an epic blast to watch. It was good to finally watch especially during the 2010s, an action movie that was not rated PG-13 and not family friendly or goofy or woke, even, and just a normal action film that was actually not afraid to be violent and grisly in the 2010s. It was good to finally get to watch that kind of action film in theaters. So what is this movie about? Well, 11 years after the Battle of Burma, a Vietnam War John Rambo's peaceful life is interrupted when Gabriella, his friend's granddaughter, disappears in Mexico, and Rambo must come out of retirement to confront his past and unearth his ruthless combat skills to exact revenge on a final mission. The good qualities of this movie, well, like always, Sylvester Stallone still gives a good performance as John Rambo, some amazing action sequences, and some definitely great kills. Literally anyone who gets murdered, well, who get the most violent deaths in this movie are the bad guys, which is good because the bad guys in this movie are very... if you think Major Tent was sadistic, wait, the Martinez brothers were equally just as much. So because they basically they're like the Mexican drug cartel. Like, if you've seen the film, you obviously know it. But soundtrack is well done despite being a retreat of the pre-film score. Like, the underground tunnel battle is still very fun to watch, and then something out of nowhere happened. One character got killed off that I was not expecting to happen. Like, no, really. They just killed this character, and I didn't know it was about to happen. Like, now, I mean, yeah, there are still some bad qualities, like the moral questions of war present in the previous films are kind of absent here. Like, the plot is a little unoriginal. It's kind of basically a Mexican version of Taken, but however, thankfully it doesn't rip off Taken too much. The character kill-off kind of prevents it from being a rip-off of Taken. And of course, And it feels like a little too short. But guys, that's just because like it was supposed to be 101 minutes long, but then executives at Lionsgate went all, nah, that's too long. Let's like take out 12 minutes of the film and make it 89 minutes. Like, come on. But thankfully there was an alternate cut that has an alternate opening scene, and I have a feeling if that was the cut we got, the 101-minute cut, it probably would have gotten way better reviews and probably would have made much more money at the box office than it did. Another problem I cannot stand is the critics going on about how, oh, this movie's racist, oh, this movie's xenophobic, oh, this movie's misogynistic, oh my god, this movie's too graphic and violent. These critics should know what they were about to watch after the fourth movie. They really should have known they were going to get a violent, gory action film if they've watched the 2008 fourth movie. And for crying out loud, I'm going to say this once, and I'm going to say it again, Rambo is not a PG-13 franchise, nor is it a franchise for kids. John Rambo was never written for children. He never was. And there is no racist stuff in this. How is an action movie in Mexico racist? Or misogynistic or xenophobic? Plus critics always praise a lot of violent movies, gory movies. They seem to like it before this movie, but now all of a sudden, 2019, it's suddenly wrong to make an R-rated action film. But whatever, guys. I'm not going to crickle that. I love the movie. It's still a fun movie to watch. Despite being the second weakest, I will admit that. I would rank it a 7.5 out of 10. Once again, not the best Rambo movie, but still a fun action movie to watch. I personally still enjoy it. So guys, now that I've talked about all the Rambo movies, here's how I'm going to list the series. First place, First Blood. Second place, Rambo 4, 2008. Third place, Rambo First Blood Part 2. Fourth place, Rambo Last Blood. And bottom worst, Rambo 3. That's how I would rank the Rambo movies. So guys, if you have seen the franchise or have seen the films, I want to know how you would rank the Rambo movies. These down in the comments below. Until then, that'll be it for this video. Thank you all for watching, and if you like this and want to see more, don't forget to like and subscribe to Movie Lover 120.